The signal that shouldn't exist, the Empire's command stations floated in silence above the capital world. From these stations, every movement in the galaxy was tracked. Every ship had an identity, a code, a place in the endless registry of the Galactic Empire. Nothing passed unseen. Nothing could exist outside the records. That was the rule. That was the belief. On one ordinary shift, deep inside the monitoring center, a young officer noticed something unusual on the long-range screens. At first, he thought it was an error. The blip was faint, almost hidden in the static. He reset the display, but the mark remained. He zoomed in. The shape was clear now. A vessel was coming into range. The officer frowned. He searched the database for its identification code. Nothing appeared. He tried again, thinking perhaps he had entered it wrong. But again, the screen showed the same result. No match found. Every ship had a record, from the smallest transport to the largest dreadnought. This one had none. The officer called his superior. Together, they studied the signal. They checked the frequency, the shape, the drive signature. None of it matched Imperial ships. None of it matched known enemy designs either. The commander grew uneasy. He ordered the signal to be confirmed by another station. Within minutes, a second report arrived. The vessel was real. It was not an error. It was approaching fast. Word spread through the command center. Officers leaned over their stations, whispering to each other. Some said it must be a smuggler. Others thought it was a rebel craft trying to sneak through Imperial space. But even smugglers had codes. Even rebels had stolen ships the Empire could trace. This one had no history. It was as if it had appeared from nothing. The commander sent a message to the fleet admiral. He chose his words carefully, but even he could not hide the tension in his voice. The report was simple. Unregistered vessel detected. No identification. No response to signals. It continues on course, the admiral demanded details. The command team measured the size of the vessel. Their voices fell silent. The reading showed it was larger than any cruiser in the Empire. Longer than a city, wider than a fortress. It was not built for trade, not built for hiding. It was built for war. The admiral's face grew pale. For centuries, the Empire had ruled unchallenged. The fleets of the Empire were the strongest in the known galaxy. Yet now something unknown was moving toward them. Something that did not slow, something that did not answer. The first order was to establish communication. Every frequency was opened. Every language known to the Empire was broadcast toward the vessel. The officers waited. No reply came. The ship continued, silent and cold, its engines glowing red against the black. The admiral ordered intercept ships to prepare. But inside the command hall, unease grew into fear. Some remembered old stories. Stories that were forbidden to speak. Stories of the Death Worlders, humanity, a species that had once been feared across the stars. The Empire had declared them extinct long ago. Their homeworld was said to be burned, their fleets shattered, their people gone. But legends said otherwise. Legends claimed humanity had never died. They had only vanished, waiting, watching, preparing. One officer dared to whisper, "What if it is them?" His words made others fall silent. No one wanted to believe it. No one wanted to face the idea that the most dangerous species ever known could return. The admiral silenced the rumors. He reminded his officers that the Empire was supreme, that no ghost from the past could threaten them now. But even as he spoke, he stared at the growing signal on the display. The vessel drew closer. Its shadow stretched across the screen. Its course was steady, direct. It was heading straight for Imperial space. The admiral ordered the fleet to intercept. The command center filled with voices, each officer relaying commands to distant ships. Across the stars, engines roared to life. Squadrons moved into formation. The Empire prepared to meet the unknown. Yet still, the vessel did not slow. It did not turn. It ignored every signal, every warning. It moved as if the Empire itself did not exist. For the first time in generations, the command officers felt powerless. They were trained to control, to dominate, to know every answer. But here, in the silence of the stars, they faced something they could not explain. The admiral looked once more at the display. The ship was close now. Its form was sharper, darker, more terrifying. It was no smuggler. It was no rebel craft. It was something else entirely, he whispered to himself, though the hall was silent enough for many to hear. That ship isn't ours, and it refuses to stop. The words hung heavy in the air. Officers exchanged fearful glances. The Empire had always been certain, always been strong. But now a single vessel had shaken that certainty. The signal that should not exist had become a reality, and it was coming straight for them. The approach, the order to intercept, spread across the fleet like fire. In the dark of space, massive Imperial warships adjusted their course. Engines lit up as destroyers, cruisers, and escorts formed into strict lines. The Empire believed in order above all things. Order had kept them in control for centuries. Order had crushed rebellions, silenced uprisings, and left entire worlds afraid to resist. Now, that same order prepared to block the path of the unknown ship. Inside the command bridge of the lead Imperial cruiser, Captain Saros watched the growing signal on his screen. His crew worked in silence, each movement sharp, each command answered without delay. He had been taught since his youth that the Empire's fleets were unmatched, that no outsider could stand against them. But still, as the shape of the vessel grew clearer, unease gnawed at him. "Status," Saros demanded. "Unknown vessel is on direct approach," a young officer replied. "Distance closing. No change in speed. No reply to any frequency." "Very well," Saros said. He straightened, keeping his voice cold. His crew needed to hear strength. "The Emperor demands obedience. This vessel will learn obedience." Across the fleet, commanders sent similar words to their crews. Each ship prepared weapons. Plasma cannons hummed as energy cores built to full charge. Missile racks slid into firing position. Interceptor craft readied for launch. The Empire did not wait for explanations. The Empire enforced, and yet the vessel kept moving. Its thrusters burned with a deep crimson glow, steady and unbroken. It was not rushing. It was not hiding. It advanced as if no force could stop it. The Imperial crews had seen smugglers panic, pirates scatter, rebels try to flee. But this ship showed no fear. On the home command station, the Admiral leaned forward as the images sharpened. The vessel's armor reflected the light of distant suns. It was darker than any Imperial design, its hull scarred with lines that looked more like marks of survival than decoration. Its shape was strange, angular, brutal, a form meant for war rather than display. "Analysis," the Admiral ordered. "Composition unknown," a science officer answered. "Hull density exceeds Imperial standards. Power output is beyond our readings. Drive signature is unclassified. We cannot identify origin." The Admiral clenched his jaw. He wanted answers, and yet none came. For the first time in years, the Empire looked at something and could not name it. Within the lower decks of the lead cruiser, soldiers whispered in the barracks. They had heard the rumors already. Some laughed nervously, calling it a rebel trick. Others shook their heads, remembering forbidden tales. Deathworlders, humans. A name erased from history, yet never forgotten. The older soldiers had seen fragments of the truth buried in archives. They knew humanity had once stood against empires greater than this one, and survived. As the fleet spread into blockade formation, Captain Saros gave the command. "Send final warning." The comms officer opened the channel. His voice was clear, carrying the weight of Imperial law. "Unregistered vessel, this is the Galactic Empire. You are entering restricted space. Stop your advance at once or face destruction." The message was broadcast in every known tongue. Silence answered. The vessel's thrusters kept burning red. Its path remained straight. The bridge grew tense. Every officer felt the weight of the moment. If the ship ignored this warning, the Empire would have no choice but to fire. Yet firing meant declaring that even the mighty Empire was threatened by a single craft. The Admiral gave the order from command. "If it does not stop, disable it." Captain Saros repeated the command aloud. His crew moved quickly, preparing firing solutions. Every gun was locked, every missile aimed. The unknown vessel was now within striking range, and then it happened. The ship spoke. The comms officer froze as a signal cut through the static. A single voice, deep and calm, filled the channel. It was not Imperial. It was not alien. It was human. "This vessel does not recognize the authority of your empire. Stand aside." The words struck the bridge like a blade. The crew exchanged horrified glances. They knew the voice was human. The tone was cold, steady, and absolute. It was not a plea. It was a command. Captain Saros felt his chest tighten. He had studied history. He had read about humanity in secret, though the Empire forbade it. He remembered the warnings in those hidden records. If humans return, they will not kneel. They will not obey. They will not stop, but his duty was to the Empire. He raised his hand. Weapons ready. On my mark. The crimson glow of the unknown ship's thrusters grew brighter. It was not slowing. It was not turning. It was advancing. The Empire had demanded surrender. Humanity had answered with defiance, and the first clash was about to begin. The first clash, the fleet hung in silence. Dozens of Imperial warships floated in a perfect wall across the stars, their weapons trained on the lone vessel that dared to advance. On every bridge, officers waited for the order. Soldiers at their stations gripped their controls tighter than usual. For the first time in years, the Empire was about to fire on something it could not name. Inside the lead cruiser, Captain Saros stared at the unmarked ship. It was closer now, large enough to fill the forward view. Its dark hull swallowed the light around it. The crimson glow of its thrusters burned steady, never faltering, never afraid. He had seen rebels run before. He had seen pirates break formation the moment Imperial cannons lit up. This ship was different. It came on without hesitation, as if it had already decided the outcome. Final warning sent, Captain, the comms officer reported. His voice trembled. No response. Saros raised his hand. Fire! The command spread across the blockade. Plasma cannons roared. Bright streaks of burning energy shot through the black of space and slammed into the vessel's armor. The blast was strong enough to shatter cities. But when the light faded, the vessel remained untouched. The plasma fire scattered off its surface like sparks against stone. Gasps filled the bridge. Soldiers exchanged terrified looks. Saros forced his voice to remain cold. Continue firing. A second volley filled the void, this one larger, more desperate. Missiles streaked forward, exploding in bursts that shook space itself. But again, the vessel did not fall. It moved through the storm of fire without slowing, without even changing course, and then the voice returned. Calm, steady, human. You have chosen war. So be it. The bridge fell silent. That voice was not loud, yet it carried a weight heavier than the guns of the fleet. Saros's chest grew tight. He knew the truth now. This was no rebel trick. This was no alien design. This was human. The vessel responded with its first strike. A single blast erupted from its forward cannons, a beam of energy unlike anything the Empire had seen. One Imperial cruiser, nearly a kilometer long, vanished in an instant. Its shields collapsed, its hull split apart, and within seconds it was reduced to burning fragments drifting in the void. The soldiers on every ship froze. Entire crews watched as one of their strongest warships was destroyed by a single shot. They had fought against uprisings, crushed fleets, enforced the Emperor's will across the stars. Never had they seen such power. Panic rippled through the ranks. Voices rose on the comms, shouting reports of damage, screams of fear. The perfect order of the Empire's blockade began to break. Ships tried to adjust formation. Some pulled back, others prepared to charge, but nothing looked certain anymore. On the command station, the Admiral's face turned pale. He clenched the arm of his chair, his voice sharp and desperate. They are human. Gods above, they are human. The forbidden word spread like a virus. Humanity, the Deathworlders, the ghosts of history, now alive before their eyes. The very name carried fear older than the Empire itself. It was said humanity never bowed, never surrendered, never stopped fighting. And here was proof. The human vessel fired again. Another cruiser shattered, torn apart like glass struck by a hammer. The Empire had built its fleets to dominate. But now, ship after ship was falling without leaving a scratch on the enemy. Captain Saros gritted his teeth. He tried to hold his crew together, tried to command order. Do not falter. We are the Empire. We do not. His words were cut off by the blinding flash of another human strike. His ship shook violently as alarms screamed through the bridge. Shields collapsed. Hull integrity broke. Sparks rained down from the ceiling as officers were thrown from their stations. Saros fell to the floor, his vision blurred by smoke. Through the chaos, he heard the voice again, echoing over every channel, reaching every Imperial ear. Humanity does not kneel, stand aside, or be destroyed. The battle was no longer a clash. It was a lesson, and the Empire was learning fear. The human revelation, the battlefield burned with wreckage. Pieces of shattered cruisers floated like broken bones across the void. Fires glowed faintly in the silence of space, drifting among the remains of men and machines. The Empire's wall of warships was no longer a wall at all. It was fragments, holes, and chaos. From the command station, the Admiral could only stare at the display. His fleet, his perfect disciplined fleet, was falling apart. Dozens of ships remained, yet they no longer looked like a force of power. They looked like prey scattered before a predator. The unknown vessel still advanced, slow and deliberate. Every time the Empire struck, it stood untouched. Every time it answered, another Imperial ship died. And all the while, that voice carried across the comms, cold, calm, human. Inside the bridge of one of the remaining destroyers, officers argued in panic. Some demanded retreat. Others wanted to keep firing. The captain slammed his hand against the console. "Silence. We are the Empire. We cannot run from one ship." But even as he shouted, his face betrayed his doubt. He knew what his crew now knew. This was no ordinary vessel. This was human technology, sharper, stronger, faster than anything the Empire had ever seen. The science officer spoke in a trembling voice. "Captain, I have scanned the hull again. The materials, they are not listed in any database. The density is impossible. The energy output is beyond what we can record. This ship, it is not supposed to exist." The captain turned slowly. His voice was quiet. "And yet it does." Meanwhile, whispers spread across every Imperial channel. Soldiers spoke the forbidden word, the word that had been erased from Imperial archives but never forgotten in memory. Humanity. They had been told humanity was gone. They had been told the Death Worlders had been burned away long ago, their planet reduced to dust, their fleets destroyed. The Empire had written history to erase them. But truth does not vanish so easily. The stories had survived in whispers, carried secretly from generation to generation, and now those whispers had become real. On the human vessel, the voice spoke again, louder this time, filling every channel, reaching every soldier across the fleet. "You erased our name from your history. You called us extinct. But humanity does not die so easily. We warned you centuries ago. We told you we would return. And now here we are." Every word struck like a hammer against the pride of the Empire. Officers who had never known fear now felt it flood through their veins. Entire crews stared at the screen, staring at the dark warship that should not exist, and felt the ground of certainty collapse beneath them. The Admiral tried to hold control. His voice echoed through the fleet. "Do not believe their lies. They are only one ship. One ship cannot defeat the Empire." But even as he spoke, the truth was clear. That one ship had already destroyed 3 of the Empire's strongest cruisers in minutes. It had survived a storm of plasma fire without a scratch, and it had declared itself human. Captain Saros, injured but alive on the burning bridge of his cruiser, felt the weight of the moment. He remembered the forbidden records he had once seen in secret, records that spoke of humanity's strength, of their strange homeworld where everything was hostile, where survival itself was a battle every day. It was said that in war, humans became something no other species could match, and now he knew those records were not myths. They were warnings. The human vessel fired again. Another destroyer split apart, its remains spinning into the void. The Empire's fleet was breaking faster now. Formations crumbled. Ships pulled back without orders. Fear spread like a sickness. In the command station, the Admiral whispered to himself, "If this is only one ship, how many more wait in the dark?" No one answered. The silence was heavy with dread. The human voice cut through again, final and merciless. "You call yourselves rulers, but you cannot even stand against a single ship. Remember this day, humanity has returned, and we do not kneel." The words echoed across the stars. The Empire, once unshaken, now trembled. Entire systems would hear of this. Entire planets would question Imperial strength. Fear, once used as the Empire's weapon, was now turned against them. The lone human vessel slowed for a moment, its thrusters dimming. Then, without warning, it shifted course and vanished into the dark beyond, leaving only wreckage behind. But its absence did not bring relief. Instead, it left behind a silence far more terrifying, because silence meant uncertainty, and uncertainty meant the Empire no longer felt safe. The soldiers who survived whispered to each other in hushed voices. They knew the truth, even if their leaders would deny it. Humanity was back, and this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The Empire trembles. The wreckage still drifted across the void. Shattered hulls, broken weapons, fragments of lives lost, all floating silently in the cold. For the first time in centuries, an Imperial fleet had been defeated not by an enemy alliance, not by a rebellion, but by one single ship. In the command station, the admiral sat frozen in his chair. His officers waited for orders, but no words came. His lips trembled, his hands clenched against the armrests, and still he gave nothing. To admit what had happened was to admit weakness. To admit weakness was to admit the Empire could be broken. Finally, one brave officer spoke. "Admiral, what should we tell the Emperor?" The Admiral closed his eyes. He knew the truth. The Emperor would demand silence. The Empire thrived on control, and control could not survive this truth. His voice was hoarse as he replied, "We tell him nothing. The report will say the fleet engaged unknown pirates. Nothing more." But the silence in the room told him what he feared. No lie could hold this truth back. Too many had seen. Too many had heard the voice. Too many ships had fallen. Across the surviving fleet, whispers spread faster than orders. Men and women who had once laughed at the idea of Deathworlders now spoke their name in hushed tones. Humanity. The word itself felt dangerous, like fire passed hand to hand. They told each other what they had seen, what they had heard. They repeated the words of the voice. Humanity does not kneel. On distant colonies, rumors began before the wreckage even cooled. Traders, smugglers, and soldiers carried the story. They said a single unregistered vessel had stood against the Empire and won. They said the Deathworlders were back. They said the galaxy was no longer safe for the Empire. In the throne hall of the Emperor, the news reached him despite the Admiral's attempt to bury it. He raged, his voice echoing across the golden chamber. "One ship dares to humiliate us? One ship dares to defy the Empire?" His advisors knelt, heads lowered, none daring to answer. But the fury in his voice could not erase the fear in their hearts. The Emperor ordered silence across the Empire. Any soldier caught speaking of humanity would be executed. Any record of the battle would be sealed. The fleet was commanded to return at once and never speak of what happened. But fear does not obey decrees. Fear spreads on its own. On border worlds, civilians looked to the sky with new hope. They had lived under the Empire's chains for generations, believing no one could challenge it. Now they whispered that maybe, just maybe, the Deathworlders had returned to break those chains. On military bases, soldiers trained with nervous hands. They still obeyed orders, but the certainty in their hearts was gone. They knew their mighty fleets could fall. They had seen it happen. And in the hidden corners of the galaxy, rebels and freedom fighters listened closely. They did not know where the human ship had come from or where it had gone, but they knew what it meant. The Empire could be defeated. Meanwhile, far beyond Imperial space, the human vessel traveled through the dark, engines burning crimson against the endless stars. Its crew stood silent, each man and woman knowing the importance of what had just been done. They had not destroyed the Empire, but they had shattered its illusion of invincibility. They had reminded the galaxy that humanity was not gone. Humanity was watching. Humanity was returning. In the quiet of the command deck, the human captain spoke to his crew. His voice was calm, steady, the same voice that had struck fear into the hearts of the Empire. "They know now. Let them fear us. Let them wonder how many ships we have. Let them imagine what waits in the dark. Fear will weaken them long before our fleets arrive." The crew nodded. They understood. This was not the end of a battle. This was the beginning of a war. Back in the Empire, the Admiral sat alone in his quarters. His hand shook as he poured a glass of water, his eyes staring at the floor. He whispered the words he had heard, words he could not forget. Humanity does not kneel. He knew then that the Empire's age of certainty was over. For centuries they had ruled unchallenged, believing themselves untouchable. But all it had taken was one ship, one human voice to show them the truth. The Empire could bleed, and once the galaxy knew that, nothing could keep it whole. The stars were no longer safe for the Empire. They trembled now, waiting, watching, wondering when the humans would return in greater numbers. And somewhere in the silence of deep space, that answer was already being prepared.